Alrighty, we are going to learn how to write a strong thesis statement, okay? A thesis is the most important part of a paper. If you do not have a strong thesis, you will not have a good paper. So it is important to learn how to write a strong thesis. This video is going to be showing you how to do that. First and foremost, the thing you should be doing when you're writing a thesis is you need to understand what is a thesis, okay? A thesis is an argument that you are making in your paper. This is always going to be an argument that you're going to be able to prove as you go through the paper. Now, the benefits of having one of these is it allows your reader to clearly see the topic of your paper. So the little reader fish sitting there on your paper need to know what's going on. So make sure that you make a clear thesis so I know, or the reader knows, what your paper is going to be about. If that's not present in a thesis, okay, you don't have a very strong thesis, which means you're not going to have a very strong paper. Additionally, it allows you, the author, to keep your research focused. It's very easy as you go through writing an essay to kind of take it and really go in a bunch of different directions. But if you have a thesis, you're going to stay to the topic on hand. So make sure you have a strong thesis that goes along with the topic of what you're writing about so that you can stay focused, make sure you answer the question at hand, and don't divert and go to a different direction. All right, let's move into step number one. First and foremost, you need to start with a question in mind. If you don't have a question in mind, you're not going to be able to write a strong thesis. And here's an example right here. Okay, so the question is, why is the Mississippi River so important in Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn? Okay, so it's a book right there by Mark Twain. I'm just asking you a question. That's going to be the prompt pretty much that you'll be writing about. So that is the question there. And then when you come to a thesis, you need to answer this question in your thesis. If you're not answering that question, you do not have a strong thesis. Your whole entire paper and essay is going to be off topic. That's not going to get you a very good grade. So make sure that it goes along with that. Okay, so the example right here is the river comes to symbolize both division and progress as it separates our characters and country while still providing the best chance for Huck and Jim to get to know one another. So right there, they explain a thesis and they back it up with different, they make sure that it explains and answers the question at hand. Okay, step number two, tailor the thesis to the type of paper you are writing. There are three different types of papers. You need to make sure your thesis goes with those different types of papers. Number one is an argumentative paper. An argumentative essay makes a claim and then backs it up. You are trying to prove something, so you're going to say, this is what happens and here is why this happens. Second one is an analytical, which is simply making something easier to understand. So you're going to be like explaining the democratic system of government. Why does it work this way? You're going to explain what is happening. And thirdly is an expository, which is going to teach or illustrate a point. So you're going to be maybe teaching me how to tie my shoes, the steps that I need to go through to tie my shoes. So those are the three different types of papers. Make sure that your thesis is tailored to those individual types. So some examples right here. An analytical example would be this dynamic between different generations sparks much of the play's tension as age becomes a motive for the violence and unrest that rocks King Lear. Okay, an expository one right here, the explosion of 1800s philosophies like positivism, Marxism, and Darwinism undermined and refuted Christianity to instead focus on the real, tangible world. So right there, you're kind of explaining what's going on. And then argumentative, without the steady hand and specific decisions of Barack Obama, America would never have recovered from the hole it entered in the early 2000s. That one right there is trying to prove a point, okay? It's argumentative. You might disagree with that, but this author in this essay should be, based off of this thesis, explaining stuff and explaining why the steady hand of Barack Obama allowed America to recover from the economic hole from the early 2000s. Okay, step three, right here. You need to take a specific stance. This is about making your essay specific so you know what is going on. Okay, if you're too broad, nothing's going to happen here. You're going to have a very poor paper. Make sure you take a specific stance that you can prove. This is going to, number one, allow for a stronger thesis, and it's going to help your paper be better. Some examples right here you can see on the screen. While both sides fought the Civil War over the issue of slavery, the North fought for moral reasons while the South fought to preserve its own institutions. Okay, they're making a specific stance. They're not really being argumentative on one side or the other. They're simply explaining what's going on specifically. The primary problem of the American steel industry is that it lacks the funds to renovate outdated plants and equipment. Again, taking a specific stance. The reason there's a problem with the American steel industry industry is that it lacks the funds needed. And then finally, Hemingway's stories helped create a new prose style by exploring or employing extensive dialogue, shorter sentences, and strong Anglo-Saxon words. So right there, if I'm reading that essay, I know that one is about Ernest Hemingway. Number two, I know that it's talking about a new prose style, and they're going to tell me they're doing that through extensive dialogue, shorter sentences, and strong Anglo-Saxon words. Okay, that's probably going to be the one you're using most when it comes for test in my class. That is going to be explaining what's going on right there. Step number 4, okay? Ensure that you can prove your thesis. If you cannot prove your thesis, you are not making an argument, your paper will be crap. Make sure that you can prove your thesis. Be objective, not subjective, okay? Make it so that people would agree with you. Don't make it subjective, so I have to have your state of mind when it comes to understanding what is going on. Some examples right here. Okay, the first one is a good one you should be using. It's provable. According to the well-documented beliefs and philosophies in existential society, with no notion of either past or future, cannot help but become stagnant. Okay, it's objective right there. They're explaining what's going on. Do not make it subjected or complicated, where you have to like do what it's saying. Okay. The theory of genetic inheritance is the binding theory of every human interaction. That's very hard to prove. It's complicated. I simply cannot do that. I can't prove that essay, or I cannot prove that thesis. Therefore, this is a poor essay to be writing. Step number 5, okay, state your thesis correctly. They should serve as a roadmap to your paper. I should be able to read your thesis and know exactly how your paper will go. First is going to be point A, then paragraph A is going to be talking about point A. Point B, paragraph B is going to be talking about that. Point C, paragraph C will be talking about that. Remember, a good thesis is an argument. If it is not an argument, it is not a good thesis. Go back and write your thesis again. Number 2, it is specific. If it is too broad, go back and write a thesis again. And number 3, it is not an observation or a fact. I'm not simply just stating something that everyone knows or can easily observe. I'm making an argument. If it is an observation or fact, you need to go back and write it again. Okay, some examples right here. Thought through careful sociological study, we found that people naturally assume that moral righteousness, people look down on them as morally righteous people, look down on them as inferior, causing anger and conflict where there is generally none. Okay, this is an assertion. It takes a stance. It answers a specific question, and it is debatable. If it's not debatable, you're probably not going to have a very strong thesis. So ask yourself, could I debate this and actually have a debate on it? If not, you probably want to go back and redo your thesis. All right, step number 6 is make it stand out. The reader reading your paper should be able to find your thesis like that, okay? If it's not easy to find, that's probably a problem with your thesis. You should go back and do something different. A good thesis is easy to recognize. An example of it is right here, okay? Take a very particular tone and use specific kinds of words and phrasing. Because of William the Conqueror's campaign into England, that nation developed the strength and culture it would need to eventually build the British Empire. I know from reading this that it's developing the strength and culture. I'm going to be talking about how William the Conqueror's campaign allowed England to develop the strength and culture that it needed to become an empire. Right here, it's easy to recognize there's an argument that's specifically laid out. I know if I were to read a paragraph and this was in here, I could find out where the thesis, can't speak today, was located. Step number 7 is keep it short, okay? The acronym KISS, okay? Keep it short, stupid. Keep it short. That will help you so much. Don't try to sound intelligent. That's not, every time someone does that, it makes them not sound so intelligent. Keep it short, keep it simple. It's going to help you move forward. A good thesis is no more than 2 sentences, okay? It can be over 1 sentence, should not be more than 2 sentences. Short and simple. The advent of internet technology has rendered copyright laws irrelevant. Everyone can and should get writing, movies, art, and music for free. This one right here is short, simple, to the point. They're making an argument. It's a provable argument. There's evidence they can use to back up why you should be able to get everything for free. It's good to go. Step number 8. Make sure your topic is specific enough, okay? Make sure that it has enough information to answer. If you are super, super broad, and I'm talking about like the ocean is full of fish, and I'm trying to write an essay on simply swordfish, that's going to be very hard to prove because the ocean is huge, okay? Make it more specific. So I'm talking about simply maybe the Gulf of Mexico, something like that. Make sure your topic has enough information to answer. If you give me something so specific you cannot write an essay about it, that is going to be problematic, okay? If I'm trying to write about goats living in Kenya, and I have no information on ghosts living in Kenya when I'm simply trying to write about animals on the continent of Africa, I'm probably doing a very poor essay. I don't have a lot of information. Okay, make it specific enough where I know what you're talking about, but broad enough where you have information to answer. Don't make your life more challenging than it needs to be. Step number 9, okay, follow the blueprint. Your thesis is a blueprint that's telling you where your paper is going to be going. Follow that and everything will be easier for you. Clearly state the topic or subject and then summarize what you are going to say. This summary is not, today my paper is going to be telling you about this, or this paper is about. Do not ever do that. You are better than that. That is not a thesis statement. That is simply telling me what's going to be happening. We'll show some ways to get rid of that. Basically just say this paper is going to be about and delete that whole thing and then start right there, and that's going to be your thesis statement, okay? Examples is something does something because of reasons, okay? Goats climb on top of stuff because it makes them feel important and they have energy to burn off, okay? I can write a thesis about that. The other one could be because goats have energy to burn off and they want to feel important, okay? Because they do that, goats climb on top of something. Boom, I'm explaining what's going on right there. Same word could fit into each sentence right there. Because something does something because of reasons, okay? Something does something because reasons, something does something. Examples right there. The other one could be, although opposing evidence. So something is going to show the opposite reasons, okay, so a different reason that you can list right here, show something does something. Although it might be annoying for farmers, reasons, okay, goats climb to burn off energy shows that goats climb on top of something. Okay, step number 10, write it down and ask yourself the following questions. Is it a question? Is it a list? Is it off topic? Is it in first person? Is it combative? Okay. If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need to stop, go back, and rewrite your thesis. You cannot have a thesis that is simply a question, a thesis that is a list, a thesis that is off topic, that is first person, or is combative. Okay. If your thesis is any of those, you do not have a strong thesis. You must go back and rewrite your thesis. Now, that is all the information you need to know to write a thesis. This is important. You should keep this. I will have this hung on my wall in my classroom. Go back, look at this, and make sure your thesis isn't one of these. If you have any questions, comment down below. Otherwise, have a great day.